Hi kids, and welcome to Story Time. Now, the first story of Thomas was written in 1945 by a minister named Reverend W. Awdry. And he wrote those stories until 1972, and then his son took over the job of writing Thomas stories after that. So 1945 was a long time ago. It was even before I was born, so that tells you how long ago it was. In any event, Thomas has been enjoyed by children for many, many, many years, and I hope you enjoy this story. This is the story about Thomas the Tank Engine. Thomas worked really hard, shunting coaches for the big engines. But what he wanted more than anything was his very own branch line. Thomas the Tank Engine had 6 small wheels, a short stumpy funnel, a short stumpy boiler, and a short stumpy dome. He was a fussy little engine, always pulling coaches back and forth. He pulled them to the station for the big engines to take out on journeys, and when trains came in, he pulled the empty coaches away so that the big engines could have a rest. But what Thomas really wanted was his very own branch line. That way he would be a really useful engine. Thomas was a cheeky little engine. He thought no engine worked as hard as he did, and he liked playing tricks on the others. One day, Gordon had just returned from pulling the big express. He was very tired and had just gone to sleep when Thomas came up beside him. "Wake up, lazy bones!" whistled Thomas. "Do some hard work for a change." And he ran off laughing. Gordon got a terrible shock. He decided he had to pay Thomas back. The next morning, Thomas wouldn't wake up. His driver and fireman couldn't make him start. It was nearly time for Gordon's express to leave. Gordon was waiting, but Thomas hadn't gotten his coaches ready. At last Thomas started. Oh dear, he yawned. "Poop, poop, poop, hurry up, you," said Gordon crossly. "Beep, beep, beep, hurry up yourself," replied Thomas cheekily. Thomas usually pushed behind Gordon's train to help him start, but he was always uncoupled first, so that when the train was running nicely, Thomas could stop and go back. That morning, Gordon saw the perfect chance to pay Thomas back for frightening him. He started so quickly that the guards forgot to uncouple Thomas. Gordon moved slowly out of the station, pulling the train and Thomas with him. Then he started to go faster and faster, much too fast for Thomas. "Peep, peep, stop, stop," whistled Thomas. "Hurry, hurry, hurry, hurry," laughed Gordon in front. "You can't get away, you can't get away," giggled the coaches. Poor Thomas was going faster than he had ever gone before. "I shall never be the same again," he thought sadly. "My wheels will be quite worn out." At last they stopped at a station. Thomas was uncoupled and given a long, long drink. "Well, little Thomas," chuckled Gordon, "now you know what hard work means, don't you?" Poor Thomas was too breathless to answer. The next day, Thomas was working in the yard. On a siding by themselves were some strange-looking cars. "That's the breakdown train," said his driver. "When there's an accident, the workers use it to help clear and mend the line." Just then, James came whistling through the yard crying, "Help! Help!" His brake blocks were on fire, and his cars were pushing him faster and faster. James disappeared into the distance. Soon after, a bell rang in the signal box, and a man came running. "James is off the line. We need the breakdown train. Quickly!" he shouted. Thomas was coupled onto the breakdown train, and off he went as fast as he could. "Bother those cars and their tricks," he said. "I hope James isn't hurt." They found James and the cars at a bend in the line. James was in a field, with a cow staring at him. The brake van and the last few cars were still on the rails, but the front ones were piled in a heap behind James. James's driver and fireman were checking to see if he was hurt. "Don't worry, James," his driver said. "It wasn't your fault. It was those troublesome trucks." Thomas pushed the breakdown train alongside James. Then he pulled the cars that were still on the line out of the way. "Oh dear," they groaned. "Serves you right, serves you right," puffed Thomas crossly. As soon as the other cars were back on the line, Thomas pulled them away too. He was hard at work all afternoon. Using 2 cranes, the men put James carefully back on the rails. He tried to move, but he couldn't, so Thomas pulled him back to the shed. Sir Topham Hatt was waiting for them there. "Well, Thomas," he said kindly, "I've heard all about it, and I think you're a really useful engine. I'm so pleased with you that I'm going to give you your own branch line." "Oh, thank you, sir," said Thomas happily. Now Thomas is as content as can be. He has a branch line all to himself, and he puffs proudly backwards and forwards from the morning till night, with his coaches Annie and Clarabelle. Edward and Henry stop quite often at the junction to talk to him. Gordon is always in a hurry and does not stop, but he never forgets to say "poop, poop, poop" to Thomas, and Thomas always whistles "beep, beep, beep" in return. Well, that's the end of our Thomas story for today. Hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to the next time when we come up with another interesting story for you kids with a little bit of historical background too. Bye now.